I'm Tinabeth Piña. Exporting musical theater to other countries has never been as big as it is now. And Asia, with over 4 billion potential theater goers, is proving to be a successful market for Broadway musicals.
When we started the company, which is over 20 years ago, Asia as a market was different than it is now. There's been a lot of growth and a lot of development.
Over the last 10 years, theatrical productions by the Broadway Asia Company have played in 400 cities in over 40 countries on 5 continents, including 37 cities in China alone.
The very first project that we brought to Asia was Stomp, which was a terrific production to do that with, since it's a non-language production. You know, it's basically a performance piece with rhythm and sound and music and dance. And so because it didn't require language at all, it was a perfect show to bring to Asia.
Musicals eventually made their way to Asia, starting with The Sound of Music.
The Sound of Music is a really interesting show because the movie has international popularity, and actually some of the songs like Do Re Mi are even used in China as part of the English curriculum to teach English. So I think that there is a familiarity with it that was sort of transcendent.
When the shows do go to Asia in any country, are they normally done in English, or are they translated into the native languages of Japan, Korea?
A lot of the time we will tour an American production and it will go in English to these different countries, but then more and more the shows are translated, licensed to a local partner who then hires a native cast who performs it in the native language. One of the most fascinating for me was the producers, which we were able to bring the national touring company from the United States to Japan, and they performed in Tokyo and Osaka. And then about a month later, we had a Japanese company, all Japanese performers perform the show. It was pretty amazing to see that show work very differently, of course, because in one, the audience was looking at the show in English and having simultaneous translation, with projected subtitles, and in the other they were hearing it, in their native language. So clearly the laughs came quicker in the, in the Japanese language one.
Would something that works in Japan not work in Korea, or not work in China?
I think you're right that there are different sensibilities. Certainly, I mean, it's just like, if you make a generalization about America, but then you have the North and the South and the East and the West, and we can make generalizations about those places too, and they're only true to a degree, But yeah, Asia is very different. I mean, certainly, just in terms of the development of musical theater and the exposure of the audiences to the form, like I said, Japan is the most developed. Korea is probably the next most developed. China is the least developed of those 3 markets. And then there are others like Singapore, which is a largely English-speaking territory, but they have some exposure to the form. So part of it is about exposure, part of it is about the sensibilities of the audiences, which are different. They're different. Certainly, even as we tour a show throughout the United States, at different you'll get different laughs in New York City than you will in Pittsburgh.
The Asian Pacific community also responds differently to the shows themselves. What may be a flop here may actually work over there.
For Broadway theater especially, it's a collaboration between the direction, the choreography, the writing, the design, all those things. And it's any kind of recipe that you make, if you put in too much of this and not enough of that, it just doesn't come out well. And so I think the opportunity to sort of try again and rework that is exciting. We're working on a production of a show that was a quick flop here, Lestat, which is a musical based on the Anne Rice vampire novels, and it's a score by Elton John, so it has a lot of really good elements to it, but it didn't work here. And we have a Korean company who is going to take the elements of the show and create a new version, and they're very hopeful that it'll succeed. This particular company uses pop stars. They use Korean pop stars in the main roles, and they've been tremendously successful, and they've actually brought their shows to Japan, but actually performed in Korean in Japan, and they've had very successful engagements there.
The Broadway Asia Company is also taking shows originating in Asia and touring them internationally.
Our goal as a company has always been to try and find a market for the Broadway shows in Asia, and to try and find shows in Asia that might have a life in the rest of the world. So we've worked on quite a few projects that have had a life beyond. The first one we did was the Vietnamese water puppets, which we brought here to the United States for a tour, which was a really cool experience. And then we helped create a show called Cookin', which basically started in Korea under the name Nanta, and we brought in American collaborators who helped them to refine the show and make it, I think, a little more accessible for world audiences. And it's gone on to play over 40 countries and, you know, had a really long life. It actually is running in 5 different locations in Korea right now, that show, more than 10 years later. So it's been, you know, that's been a sort of phenomenon. And, you know, we are continuing to work on new projects like that.
The Broadway Asia Company is also broadening its scope to India and is very excited about the enormous audience potential there, especially when its theatrical infrastructure is further developed. For Asian American Life, I'm Tinabeth Piña.